All right, so we ended on that, on my rather controversial piece there, talking about how you share the spotlight with parliamentary reps and members of parliament and ministers and so. And I think it was Jeanette was about to say something. Jeanette? Hello?
She's not here yet.
Okay. And yeah, were you about to say something before as well?
Yes, sir. Based on the scenarios that was put forward, right? We are basically saying that is an opportunity because with ministers of government and other high people in society, they bring a level of publicity with them that groups can take advantage of, especially if they are not on the crooked side of the line.
Okay.
Right. So that level of publicity would be one that, you know, groups and stuff can take advantage of. What is important is for us to keep the message that is going out there rather than making the ministers and other officials the
dictator.
Right, making them the centerpiece of the event or whatever the case might be. So it's basically taking advantage of the publicity they bring, but yet keeping your message of the event and what you want to get across in line.
And I'm glad you said that, Natasha, because what it really calls for is a level of confidence in the executive or the membership of the organization to feel comfortable standing on a stage or on a podium side by side with the minister. Because the media is going to ask the minister, so what was the idea behind this? Or what was the concept behind it? And if you have some shy feeding types, the minister is going to have to improvise, or the parliamentary rep is going to have to improvise and say, you know, the constituency office here usually helps with all of these events, blah, 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 which may not be the case. So you have to make sure that you have frontline people who are prepared to stand next to the minister, next to the parliamentary rep, and give the actual details, because in the absence of the details, they are going to bluff. Because if you stick a microphone in front of a politician, you know, he or she is going to say something, right? And if you don't have anyone there that they can turn to and say, well, you know, Mrs. Charles, Mrs. Simon or Mrs. Charles is the vice president of the group, and she will be able to give in more detail. Unless you have somebody like that standing there, poised and ready to speak, and not shying away in the background, sulking, thinking, you know, I don't know what the minister and them come here for, you know, because it's only them they interview. It works both ways, so that the organization must be prepared. And to be prepared, that marketed message should have been sold internally first. I don't know how many different times, how many different ways I'm going to say this, because it is still not clear. I'm telling you, you all are the group that I work with the most and the closest. And even within your group, you still have not gotten that drilled into you yet, that there is a level of coherence that is needed. You don't have to be chummy. It's not a friendship society running. I'm not saying that all of you should share numbers and every morning call one another and wish them a happy day and all that. But I'm saying that the message must be consistent. There must be a certain coherence of thought.
So you're a bit low, eh?
Structure. Sorry?
You're a bit low.
Oh, you're not hearing me?
No.
Still? Still not hearing me?
It's a lot better.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's why I was leaning forward to, because I couldn't hear.
All right, sorry about that. You hear me now? Yeah? Right. So I was saying that you need a level of coherence within every organization. That message must be a message that was drilled home internally before you do your first public event, your first public bit of exposure. You must have not only tested that message, but drill that message home within your executive and within your membership. so that there's a certain coherence going out, right? And I'm going to spend a little time on that a little later when I go through for those of you who joined the first session late, I said that I'm going to be going through and actually marking online, well, showing you how I mark the group assignment online, right? And I have a lot to say about that assignment, so stay tuned, right? Don't go anywhere. All right. So, anybody else?
So not to interrupt,
Mm-hmm.
after you're giving me this hot lip,
Yeah.
is it okay? I'm just wondering,
Mm-hmm.
is it okay? Like, for example, the scenario that Nida put forward, right? The minister showed up. So,
Mm-hmm.
say for example, they had maybe a little ceremony, and out of courtesy, they asked the minister to speak. But before that, as the president or the lead person, you go and you say, Madam Minister, this is the whole synopsis of the organization, and this is the message we would like for you to put forward, you know, and whatnot. Is it wrong for you to guide them in regards to the message and what you want out there as with your organization?
Absolutely not, because what you don't want them to do, you don't want them to improvise. You don't want them to bluff. Because what is going to happen is that I'm sure you all have to answer at once, but I'm sure you've been to functions where the official turned up and they kept referring to the person that they knew in the organization. They made that person sound as if he or she was the president, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, everybody. Because this is the person who the minister or the representative knows. And as far as he or she is concerned, everything that happens in the group is being done by Glenda or Janet or Karen or Kevin or whoever it is they know. And that is because you did not provide them with a proper document, short document, nothing that they want to read, that something that they could glimpse down at. So if they have to say who is the president, they'll be able to see that, okay, the president is Bonnie Jane, and it's not really Kenya, although Kenya is the one who I talk to all the time, who came to the office and who brought the letter, etc., etc. Have you ever experienced that?
Okay, because I'm trying to, you know, as we discussed, I'm trying to fit in my observations of, you know, political persons, persons that are politically affiliated, not just the ministers, right? And there is
the clerk in the constituency office too. I mean, everybody.
Yeah, it's like, you know, they have a language that they speak,
mm-hmm.
and have a tendency to what's that word?
Politicize.
That's the word I'm looking for. Everything, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
just and I think over a period in regards to how they communicate, it just naturally becomes a part. So not giving them a little guidance, to me, leave you
It's begging them to make trouble.
Exactly. But then again, some people might take offense as well in regards to probably, you know.
No, but you have to decide, but Letitia, you have to decide what level of engagement you're going to have with an invitee. And remember, we're talking about invitees, eh? We're not talking about the parliamentary rep that turns up literally uninvited and then expects to have, you know, a seat at the head table and say a few words, and so that's a completely different setup.
Okay.
That's a harder one to deal with. But when you invite someone, right, and you have in your group, you must have at least one or two people who understand protocol. There are certain protocols for the seating arrangement at the head table in terms of who speaks, you know, who does the speaking, and so you can have a minister sitting down there and somebody else with the PT address, you know, that type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a structured environment like that, if you do not have the skill set within the organization, you should look out and ask for help. Because there are people, I mean, not just in our group, but there are people with protocol experience, you know, who have worked, you know, in protocol, you know, and understand these things. And the fact that if you have ministers, there's a pecking order for ministers, obviously, you know, junior ministers, senior ministers, etc., etc., etc. Right? That's not the aspect I'm really worried about. What I'm worried about is not giving them enough background information. But they are going to politicize it, and you really cannot. It's like asking a policeman not to talk about crime prevention. I mean, that is the bread and butter. That is what they're about. So the minister or the rep is going to find some way to show that it was really NNP who built this community center, and that for years it was there, and NDC never built one. But that is not what they're there. They're not there to open the community center. They're there to open your event, and it depends on how you structure it now. Whether you're going to have somebody strong enough at the head table to make sure that people remain focused on the fact that this is a Thanksgiving event where young men from the area who are affiliated to no particular party or to both parties or wherever arranged this Thanksgiving thing. And we invited the minister, we invited the parliamentary rep to say a few words. Right? And some of the clever ways you do it too is that by putting times on the program. Right? You also need to put times on the program. If you don't put times on the program, then politicians could go on and on. But when you tell them, that you have a tight opening ceremony, you give everybody else 5 minutes, you give the parliamentary rep 15. Because you can't give the parliamentary rep the same 5 minutes you give your president or the head of a community group from next parish or something like that, right? But as I say, I'm not an expert in protocol. There are people even within this group who are more
So
expert.
can I give some comments as it relates to protocol?
Right, because I know that is what you do.
Right. You can, first off, when it relates to giving your organization or you launching something and giving it a little body, a little oomph, a little credit, it's a wise thing to invite a politician or your parliamentary rep, right? Because there is a obligation from the media's perspective, because I only knew that when I worked in public relations. I had the late Leslie Pierre used to call me if I sent out an invitation to specify, Jeanette, who is going to be there? Will a minister be there? Whatever, please say so. And he was the one to explain from a media point of view that wherever a government minister is going to be, the media is obligated to show up, right? Whatever their affiliations, whether they like the government or not, they are obligated to show up to cover the state's business.
Right.
That's one. So having any parliamentary rep or minister show up in your event kind of guarantees the media's interest. Even if they want to come and ask them a next question, what is not pertaining, at least your event will get covered because your invitation says that these people are going to be there at your head table. Yeah. So that's one aspect of it. And as per protocol, you cannot invite statespeople to your event and can't have them speak.
Yeah.
The only time they don't speak is if they wish to not speak.
Or if the Prime Minister...
And they would say, okay, I support and I'm here just to show my face. Like I have an MP, he don't really necessarily like to talk. But he go say, Jeanette, I go show up. How long you want me to stay? You know? If you have one like that will show up to show support to your event, fine. But protocol dictates that when they are there, they must speak. And then the order in which they speak comes down to the precedence and the position that they hold.
Yep. That's what I was agreeing with you and saying that the only time you get it, you can be sure that they wouldn't have anything to say if the Prime Minister is there. Right? Because then the protocol dictates that, that they can't outshine, can't outshine the Prime. All right, so that... Right,
and if the GG is there, the PM can outshine the GG and all of that. Exactly. And where they are seated and stuff like that. So you must have persons who know protocol, to know, at which arm you put whom to sit and what, and in case you
And
cause a whole war.
whether you need the anthem or not.
Yes, and all of that.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you brought that. I didn't want to point you out because I know that is something that you did or have done, but it is imperative that the organization itself has the wherewithal to know that you need to literally plant people on that head table who can hold their own, who are not going to be intimidated by the fact that you have a parliamentary rep or a member of parliament sitting right next to you and thinking that, you can't say anything because that person is there. They are going to politicize it, but you have to be sure that your message comes out loud and clear. All right? All right.
But Steve.
Yeah, Michael.
Then again, too, it depends on the politician because we normally have a Christmas tree lighting every year, and the minister shows up, and she comes. It's always informal. We never have a formal thing with agenda and all this thing.
But she has
just
to
informal. And she shows up. She make a 5-minute speech. She praises the group. She praises the work we do. And she talk unity and all this thing,
right.
And nothing political, and everything is good.
Yeah, so but Michael, I don't even know who the politician is, and it doesn't make a difference. Let me just tell you something. There's no such thing as a politician not politicizing an event.
Once a politician show up, is politics.
Show up, exactly. But the very fact that she show up, she gets points. You follow? She will lose points if she keeps saying, the NDC never turn up at the street lighting. It's only NNP people who turn up at it. She will lose points, but she gains points just by being there. Just by being.
That's why they go to funerals.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So they're not going to. They don't have to know the person. They don't have to go to school and play cricket with the person. I mean, like the Prime Minister like to talk about all the people play cricket with and so. But just being there is enough. Right. So Michael, as much as I, I sense that you admire the fact that she may not make any overt political statement, but just by doing that, she is in fact drawing attention to the fact that that she is a different kind of politician, but she's still a politician. All right. So as I say, I don't know who it is. It's not. I'm not casting aspersions, but I'm saying that it is very difficult for a politician not to do anything political, because there are sins of omission and there are sins of commission, right? So by not doing something, that's all the sin they really need to do. Vonnie, were you?
Well, two thoughts. One is that it's very important that we communicate as an organization, as I say, so you communicate effectively in such that you want to almost have something written, or even when the politician comes, that they could sort of say that, stay within as much as possible within what you want them stay. Otherwise,
not interrupt you, but if you had a big sign of your mission facing them in the hall, at least at some point they're going to have to
refer to it.
What they're saying to your mission, okay?
Yes, excellent.
That's one of your tricks. Go ahead.
Yes. The other thing is that I had an embarrassing experience where once I was asked to be a feature speaker in a school celebration. And the politician came, and the politician spoke longer than the time she was given. And the time I began to speak, people started to tune out. Now, what I know is that a feature speech is always longer than any other speech in terms of media, generally speaking.
Yeah, but just not to interrupt you, but I want Janet to back me up on this. You cannot do a feature speech if on the same head table there's a senior politician.
And
The organizers were at fault to do that.
right.
What they should have done, they should have asked to do the opening or something. You know, they have to have a more high profile position than your address.
Yes,
Yours should have been an
definitely.
address.
So I was in an embarrassing situation, and based on what I knew about media, I just had to conclude, boy, you know, you cannot really do a feature. You cannot do the feature speech as you're supposed to do the feature speech.
No,
so you have to be shorter.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. You know.
And if I mean, without having been there, you might have been more memorable, you know. Trust me, because people tune out from long speeches anyhow.
Well, what I did, matter of fact, I used a prompt from a song from Jamaica, My Dreams. You know, it was a popular song, as one of my prompts, so that people remember that song.
Right.
And because it was about dreams and things like that.
Right.
You know. But yes, it was the organizers' fault.
Yes, it was their lack of understanding of protocol and so.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent.
You're saying that, and I mean, I was once asked to speak at a graduation for a preschool. I mean, I thought that was one of the most ridiculous things when I first saw it. Right, I was teaching one of the teachers at the preschool. So when her principal said they're looking for a feature speaker, she suggested me. I said, okay, yeah. But it dawned on me, you know, what the hell I go into a preschool graduation for? But then I realized that, wait, no, it's not really the kids are going to talk to, it's the parents, right? So, okay, I decided, yes, I would go. And lucky for me, I didn't go with a sort of cavalier attitude, because it turned out that the ex-president of the country, one Max Richards, his grandkids went to that school, and he always gives a contribution for the graduation exercise. And my man turned up. The ex-president turned up at a graduation ceremony for a preschool. So it just goes to show that, you know, if the organizers know their onions, you know, they will be sure to they'll ensure that you don't end up in an embarrassing position. I mean, Max Richards didn't speak, don't get me wrong, but it's just that he was there. So I had to be brief to mention him, you know, because you can't start speaking unless you mention that, you know, in the audience you have a past president. All right, sorry. Jeanette, were you going to say something? No. All right. So we have exhausted this whole business of how do you deal with politicians who attend either invited or uninvited. And again, this is where the strength of your executive, the strength of your internal marketing comes in. Because it is not uncommon, this also happens, that you invite a politician who ends up making a feature address. That person mentions very little about your actual organization. And the media people who are there, after they get their sound bites from the minister and people are mingling, might walk up to one of your executive members, not the person who was on the head table, and ask them, you know, so what is CSDAC all about? If that person says, well, I don't really talk about it and thinking, you have to talk to Kenya, or you have to talk to Karen. That is when you realize the weakness in the internal marketing. I'm not saying that everybody is going to be a TV personality, but everyone must be able to at least see what the mission is. What is the connection to the event, to the mission? Because every single thing that the organization does has to be grounded in that mission. So the least you could do is at least know what the mission statement says. Even if you can't rattle it off as if you learn it by heart, but at least you must know the main points. What you're here to do and how you're going to know when you're doing it. All right? Questions? Comments? Anybody awake still? No? Cool. All right. So I was going through the course outline and just making sure that I re-emphasize certain things. We talked about the metrics, we talked about Drucker, and then the next thing I want to talk about is the core values. I am not sure if you guys picked it up, but earlier in this class, Nita was asking me about the situation at Guelph over the weekend. And my point was that the only aspect of it that registered with me that I knew anything about and that I was able to look at and put in a marketing context, because as I say, that's how my schema, that's how my brain works. I want to see what is a teachable moment out of it. What's the performance of the police, the community officer, the person who took over from Sylvan. And I was saying that, you know, he was effective in that I got from him a sense of what the core values of the RGPF are. Does anyone understand what I'm saying and where that is coming from? Because he projected an image of the service that I think is what the commissioner and the membership would be proud of. He didn't come across as arrogant, always in pacifying mode. And even though there's a suspicion that the police were at fault in terms of the mistaken identity and all that, he did not, well, at least the section that I saw on TV, he did not appear to be constantly deflecting. You know, he just very calming influence and said that, you know, it's going to go through the process. Now you would be forgiven if you only saw that and you didn't see the rest of the news, where the lawyers were saying, you know, you can't really have police investigating police, blah, 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 blah. But I'm saying from as a marketing moment for the RGPF, I think he performed reasonably well, right?
So are you stretching that? Are you stretching that in comparison with generally any other police departments in the Caribbean? Or are you putting that inside the US?
Yeah, just remember, Bonnie, that, I mean, I'm sure most of you are not that young that you would realize that there was a time when there never was any such thing as a community liaison in the police service. You know? And as a matter of fact, the fact that I keep referring to this as the police service and not the police force is also indicative of the kinds of changes that police departments have made in the Caribbean, right? In Trinidad, we don't talk about the police force again. It's the police service, right? Because there was this attempt to temper it, you know what I mean? You're not forcing yourself on people. I mean, it's the same. Those of you who are around for the beginning of this class, I was talking about the use of language and the use of emotive or passionate language and inflammatory language. Police force is inflammatory because it suggests just that we were using force. I mean, if you had a bust some head and think to prove the point, we could bust some head to prove the point, as opposed to protect and serve as a service, right? I don't know how many of you, the cricket fans amongst you, know that there was a big furor when the West Indies Cricket Board of Control. You all remember that in those days, right? And people keep asking, controlling what? What is supposed to be controlling, right? I know. Is that really the kind of nomenclature? A board of selectors and a board of managers, you know, it's really a board of control. Yeah.
But I would add to I know for a fact that over the last, give it about 10 years or so, the police have been putting a lot of emphasis into something they call community policing.
Yeah, yeah.
And trying to bridge the gap in between police being seen as the bullies
Enforcers.
and the enforcers. So they've been, they have the Police Boys Club, who, which is a non-profit that they've been running for a number of years. And the whole thing is geared towards getting, boys within the different community and trying to give them like a big brother program to get them, steer them in the right direction. And a number of boys from that end up being police officers later. So they had that initially, but community policing is something that they have been heavily stressing. They've even changed their concept from the police training school as to how they train the officers. Because when my brother and them went through it, it was so vigorous. It's like they trained them to come out behaving like animals. That they took a few of them after that and they sent them away to do their degree in policing and a different concept. So now at the training school level, they're teaching them to become friendlier with citizens instead of coming across as I'm policing you and I'm giving you orders. It's more of a polite situation. So the new breed of officers is being trained completely different to what 10 years ago used to happen. And I know that for sure.
In Trinidad, they've added psychological training, like evaluations. I mean, because the last thing I really want is police officers with anger issues and so out there. There must be a mechanism for them to have recourse to the type of psychological and sometimes psychiatric as well. Assistance.
They still have a few shipping ones outside there, but
well, yeah. But,
remember, and I mean, the force understands public relations now and marketing themselves positively. So you see, even when they're having press conferences, the way they are speaking, the language they're using, and who they put in front of the camera has become very strategic. You can't just say you'll interview any officer. That's unheard of. Yep. So their PR structure has really improved over the years, and they've been focusing on that a lot.
Yeah. As I said, I have more familiar, obviously, with because I spent a longer time there with the Trinidad examples. I have had cause to interact with the police service, at various levels. I was lucky enough when I was lecturing at UWI to start to develop a forensic type course for them, and so I've had a chance to interact with the upper echelons of the police service, and I can tell you that the training has been different. I mean, 50 years ago, policemen were hired by, and the literally used to tell you that they used to be hired by their shoe size. If you're wearing more than a size 9, it means you're beyond a certain size and build, and you could be a police, right? And it used to be a well-known joke that that they weren't necessarily all very bright, and that if a policeman run you down in town and catch you on Abercrombie Street, he will kick you until they reach Duke Street because you can't spell Abercrombie. So when you had to write up that thing, you will write up Duke Street. But that image has changed. It used to be seen as as it's only big strong fellas and think could be police. You gotta be ignorant and stupid and thing. But as I say, fortunately that has changed, right? So there again, you're talking about marketing, and you've seen it. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but I could look at any newscast and I would see something to do with either marketing or CSO involvement, and that is the state of readiness I want to get you guys to, where you can jump into any situation and see linkages, see connections, see opportunities to explain yourself, see opportunities to promote your CSO in all kinds of activities. So I'm listening to the to a sportscast and I'm hearing that, that, okay, so footballers were fined for so. And then I'm hearing that they charge the club, I'm thinking, oh boy, I would really like to meet with the executive of that club to see, how do you do a little rebranding, because you don't want to be known as the club with the fellas that fight, that lose, and that's suspended for 2 years, and how I could fit that into a civil society organization scenario where 2 or 3 of the people from this CSO could go in there and probably help them with, if not a rebranding, at least a reordering of their priorities, restructuring of the mission statement, and to show that, that they will not tolerate players allegedly getting into altercations with officials, and how do you ensure that it doesn't happen in the future? What kind of training are you going to put your membership through to be sure that even in the presence of really, really, really poor refereeing, right, you still maintain your cool and understand that, that there are ways to deal with this thing, other than walking across and kicking the ref or kicking the assistant referee, right? Any other?
I just want to quickly go back to the whole issue of police training in regards to marketing. Somebody will have known that it is wise to invest in preventative measures than
yeah, I'm surprised.
Right. And so that part of the process, just like the prisoner intervention, it is literally cheaper to intervene in the prison than to keep a prisoner in prison. In Grenada here, it costs between $25,000 to $35,000 a year to keep a prisoner in prison. And so it is cheaper to have these kind of interventions, right? And the reality in our situation in Grenada here is that, our population is 111,000. And a police judge to me, the population is 111,000. And we have only about 1,300 police. We can't deal with any major issues here as in a very realistic sense.
Yeah.
So we have to choose an approach that will try as much as possible that will integrate civilian community to policing in such a way that the community work for and help the police directly and indirectly.
And self-policing as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree. As I said, that makes a lot of sense. I am, again, as I said, always looking for opportunities to show the relevance of CSOs. I mean, the question that we're going to go through now, notwithstanding, and not only in a post-COVID-19 scenario, but generally, how do you sell CSOs to the wider public and to the politicians, right? Okay, so I promised to do a public marking of to go through I'm going to share my screen and go through your group response. But before I do that, any questions on what we spoke about before I get into this aspect of it?
I just wanted to share a comment in relation to, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes. I just wanted to share a comment in relation to what you said, that every time you look at something, you try to find a way on how you can implement development, CSOs, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I also find myself doing that. I was looking at a program,
mm-hmm.
and a lady called and said that that government should form an association for small businesses because there is no association and so forth. And then she was told that basically it's people who have to come together and actually manage and fund and develop an association.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that interesting because a lot of people do not know what they can and cannot do in terms of organizing themselves.
True. Valid. Let me, okay, so there are a couple things I want to do first. Let me try to share my screen and we'll organize this on the other side. Just 1 second, just give me 1 second.
So a quick question while you're organizing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You usually publish the recording on YouTube. That's what you said before earlier?
Yes, always. I send you the link. That link is a YouTube link.
Okay. That part of this evening would also be going up there. Just wondering if you're considering stopping the record.
No. There's no, trust me. This is going to be painless.
Okay.
This is going to be painless. I'm not that kind of person. You all know that. Are you seeing my screen?
Not yet.
No? Okay, hold on 1 second. Seen it now?
Yes, sir.
You see my screen?
Yes.
So I see.
Yes, sir. I'm seeing now.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We are seeing now.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
all
I'm
right.
seeing now.
I want everybody to switch off their microphones and take a listen to this. But this is very, very, very important for what we're going to do next. Ready?
Whenever you are.
Good at it. Good at that. I should at it. Good at that. Well, if you could at that. You should have. And if you could at that. You would have. If you could at this and you could at that, you would at this and you would at that. And all the could and the shoulda. Everything would have been like they would have. You could have what? You could have what? You could have what? You could have what? Nami ay. You nami ay.
Anybody has any idea why I just showed that? Well, let me tell you. In any group activity, there will always be, if you have 12 people in a group, there will always be 11 people who feel, I could have this, I should have that, I would have this, I could have that. There will always be the inclination to feel that with hindsight, and when you see me pointing out some of the errors and so, I could have that, I should have this, I would have that. But my thing is that if you could have, you would have, and you should have. So I want to hear absolutely no comment on the final product because you all had enough time to get the final product together. So I don't want to hear anybody who figure, you know, hey, how they put that? We could have this, and we could have that, and we should have this, and we should have that, right? So that's my opening salvo. So I hope everybody gets that quite clear. There is such a thing as collective responsibility. And I deliberately, and I take great pride in this, I deliberately give 25 of you to do a 2-page essay, which under normal circumstances, that is absolute madness.
Confession is good for the soul, sir.
It's absolute madness.
It's good to know that you know that was madness.
Of course.
It's very good to know that you know that. But because you cause us a lot of headaches.
Exactly. And I prefer if it was caused now when it's just for 40 marks, than when it's for a $40,000 proposal that people have to come up. Somebody that come up and say, you know, you would have this, We would have that. We could have this. We could have. Everybody could have, would have, and should have, right? But the fact remains that it ended up how it ended up because who could have and would have and should have did have. So somebody did have. So I ain't interested in who else could have, and should have, and would have. So that is why I'm saying that this is going to be painless, because this is not directed at the editors, it's not directed at the group leaders, it's directed at all 25 people whose name is going to be put next to that mark that this document got. Are you all understanding me? Am I being very, very, very clear? You're allowed to put off your mic now and answer. Am I being very, very clear?
Very clear, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As I said, you know, was a very, very deliberate thing, right? I have a certain amount of confidence in you guys. I mean, I think I tell you that every week, right? I'm proud of you. I'm confident, you know, in terms of where I see you guys heading, but I know that you have to be put through the mill. You guys haven't been tested yet, you know. You haven't been put through the mill yet, you know. You find the course nice and still easy going, and, you know, we didn't have no homework and we didn't have no assignment to do anything, but you see, once you put the pressure on, I tell people, you see the 25 of you had to find a way to get 25 wouldas, couldas, and shouldas to actually do it. And that, and I keep using this example all the time, you know. It's not only because my wife is in the next room. Even in a marriage, when you have two people who say constantly how they so love one another, to get them to do anything jointly is always a task. You multiply that 13 times and have 26 people involved. That's like 13 couples working on a document. You can imagine how much drama it is. You can imagine how many mother-in-law.
I hope you know we have a few divorces out of this.
I was not going to tell you that there are a few mother-in-laws that have to get calls, you know. Now they call your mother-in-law and say, I don't understand this man you raised, you know. This man you raised is an idiot, right? Because I could have this, and I would have that. I should have this, and I should have that. But the fact remains that a document was prepared and sent. And for that, I think each of you should take a bow that, you know, regardless of the trials, the tribulations, the marriages, the divorces, the making up, the breaking up, the sucking up, the swelling up, and the complaining, a document was prepared. So I want to congratulate you on that. That's why I said it was going to be painless, right? When I point out the errors are not the errors of the writers or the final people who prepared it. Is everybody's error, because there's something called collective responsibility. So don't sit there and say, oh God, how they could make a mistake like that. It's not they make no mistake. It's how you could make a mistake like that. Because that document came out with your name on it, right? So I want to be very, 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 very clear on this. And I want this to be one of the tape presentations that whenever you're in a bad mood and you start to smell yourself, you can go and watch this and realize that if I could have this, I would have that, I should have this, and I should have that. All right? So let's take a look at the document now. Any questions before we?
Sir, I must say.
Questions, not comments, questions. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Who is the person that sang that song? I'm not sure if I have the correct artist in mind.
Shadow.
Oh, okay.
That's my design.
All right.
And I will play the rest of it at some point later.
That would be appreciated.
You can look it up online.
Yeah, I plan to.
A really interesting character. But not while in my class, I must say.
Pardon me?
Not while in my class, right?
No.
Undivided attention. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. All right, so let's take a look at it. Hold on a second. Just give me one. How many of you heard that Crabs before? Any?
So I
I heard him sang it at
Really
a
once.
concert.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shadow was one of my favorite. You know, he passed on last year. Right? He was one of my favorite Caribbean.
He had a marketing style of his own, you know, so.
Oh yeah,
His dress code, you know.
Dress code, especially. So he had a dress code and a delivery style. I mean, it was jumpy music, eh? It was always something, always somebody going to meet in hell and give trouble down in hell. And if you didn't get a rhythm from hell, or you have judges jumping and who you would beat up.
Talented.
Very. As I say, I was quite a fan. Quite a fan.
I think I must have used his song about twice in writing about the beast man in the head.
Oh yeah.
That's a wonderful.
Yeah, you definitely want him to dead. Let's say I am. I appreciate lots of captions, as I'm sure you guys figured out by now, but I mean that Shadow and the Foster were two of my favorites, and both of them died within about 2 months of each other. The Foster is Winston Scarborough, the original the Foster himself, and he another product of the orphanage in Tacarigua, just like Roy Cape, Pappy. You know, those orphanage programs have serious music programs. So Boy Mitchell, all these guys would have come through the orphanage and, you know, and made a name for themselves in music. All right. So let's deal with this document now. You guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me try to minimize some of this stuff. I'm hoping that you see the entire thing. Is it full screen now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. All right. So I want to put back on my my camera so you can. Are you guys seeing me up in the corner or something? When it's on this full screen, or you're not seeing it?
Off.
No. Okay. All right. All right. So you say you're seeing the screen, right? So we're looking at the relevance of civil society organizations, CSOs, in a post-COVID-19 society. Everybody still with me?
Yes.
I'm giving you back this document. All of you are going to get a copy of it because it's your document. All right. And the final grade is at the bottom of the document. So when we get there, you will see what you got. Okay. So and let me repeat. I don't know how many different ways to say this. Let me repeat. This is not about commenting on whoever you felt submitting the final diagram document. This is your document, right? And anything you think you woulda or coulda or shoulda do, you didn't, all right? So don't even think about it. That's good. Okay, introduction. Civil society organizations are important players in the expansion of universal values surrounding human rights, the environment, labor standards, and anti-corruption. Cool. Although the focal points envelop diverse sectors contained in society, their undertakings are the same in seeking improvements for people. The gap left by governments are verbal agreement. Everybody with me?
Yes, sir.
You see the lack of verbal agreement there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're going to get comments and things are decided, so when at your leisure you get to go through it, okay? So I'm just highlighting the areas where there were comments that I made. Okay, the section on COVID-19 was well researched and necessary, so that was good. Then they did a background of civil, did a background of civil society organization. Based on research conducted, it was discovered, and I think you missed out that, it's covered the civil society has a long-standing record of bringing fresh ideas, blah, 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 blah. Look down, later on, it says, as far as the 18th century, civil societies has verbal agreement again. Now, you might think that I'm nitpicking, but I have to read proposals that you guys are going to be sending in to international agencies, where you are going to be the face and the frontline image of the CSO, right? So it is in my interest, it's in all our interests to make sure that, any written document coming out of the CSO is up to par. Agreed? Right. So
Agreed.
That is why I am being so harsh, right? Now, empowerment of both genders and different people-centered approaches, not people-centered approaches, people-centered approaches, right? Then you have civil society organizations, or civil society organization has always been and continues to be a catalyst for people's involvement. But either had to be civil society organizations have always been, right? So that was a bit of untidiness there. And then when it went down to roles of civil society organizations, the third line in that section, being bound by the basis of our mission. No, it's either being bound on the basis of, or some other construction, but that construction wasn't the best construction for that. These CSOs, and that is not CSOs, if you're going to use CSOs with abbreviations and a plural, then it can't be the apostrophe S. Everybody saw that? So it's these CSOs, plural, and not CSOs as in possessive. These CSOs play a pivotal role in enhancing transparency and good governance, right? And then you have local economic development and sustainable development that is essential in this. If you read the whole sentence, it says, in 4 primary areas, is essential. All right. Under social services, you have included TAMCC as an example of a CSO. Is TAMCC a CSO? I'm sure we had this discussion before.
Yes, they are.
Says who? Who appointed Spencer Thomas as the head of the board?
Governmental bound.
Point finish. Point final. We move on. All right. Then you went on to talk about, and this was a very good section here on the social services and what each type of CSO provides, education, health. That was really good. Then we went down to community building, and there again, the verbal agreement again, the building of communities are the backbone, that is. Community building stems from various programs that seek to bond the people. I have a real serious problem with that. I don't think you want to bond no people. Days of bondage are long gone. I didn't like the choice of the word bond. I don't think we binding people and bonding people in these days. I prefer unite or something like that, but not bond. In terms of local economic development, by the way, you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In terms of local economic development, refers to the joint initiative and coming together of CSOs. That is repetitive. If it's a joint initiative, it has to be somebody coming together. So you need to touch that up. That's why it's highlighted. So when you're reading it on your own, you realize that has to be improved. And there's no such thing as such is done. That is not an acceptable flow of words. And I've highlighted it. Sustainable development refers to the changes to policies and practices to improve CSO's ability to conduct its medium of operation. I have no idea what that is. So that has to be corrected as well. Relevance of civil society organizations in a post-COVID-19 society. There's no question that civil society organization has been relevant throughout. See, you can't use civil society organization in that talking about relevance of all civil society organizations. So there's no question that civil society organizations or the organized civil society. Is everybody quite clear on that, on the distinction between organized civil society and civil society organization?
Yep.
Please, don't just agree with me because you figure I mark the paper. It has to make sense there.
That is similar to the correction you make to me earlier, that we are as strong as our active weakest link.
Yeah. All right. So has been relevant throughout the ages, and at this stage in Earth's history, I didn't particularly like that, but I like slide, has become even more relevant. In their unique way, civil society's significance, and I put in the apostrophe S there, has always been intertwined in. There's no such thing as intertwined in. If already intertwined, it's in. Right? So that is a construction that has to be cleared up. And then in terms of economic builders, CSO is equipped with the necessary, so when it's difficult to use civil society organization in a singular sense to refer to the activities of all civil society organizations. That's not just a style issue, that's a grammar issue as well. All right? And then at the end of the sentence, through grants and donor agencies, that has to come off. Let me read the sentence. Let me read that part of the sentence. A vibrant economy by alleviating the burden of the state. Now I put a question mark there. Since when the duty of the state is a burden? We can't be going around thinking that, that civil societies are there to help with the burden of the state. No, that's the state job. The state has a responsibility. We can help them with their responsibility, but the state not supposed to look at providing for us and doing what it was elected to do as a burden. Agreement? Please, if you have any disagreement with any other corrections, please say so now, or forever hold your peace, okay? So do you understand?
So what other word you want us to use other than burden? I didn't hear which word would be better.
I would not have the responsibilities.
Thank you.
The state has a responsibility. Whether they want to choose to make it a burden or not, that's their business. But that's what they went into politics and got elected to do that. So you can't ask for a job and then when you get it, find as a burden. Okay? And then listen to the rest of the sentence. By generating employment and securing foreign exchange through grants and donor agencies. I understand where the and donor agencies come from. It's either securing foreign currency through grants. How else you get foreign currency from a donor agency? So I would take out that and donor agencies part. Good governance makes CSOs relevant in their capacity to provide strong leadership and management services in the areas of various sectors. I didn't agree with that at all. You can have watchdog services, that might be more relevant, but CSOs aren't involved in governance. By very nature, the governance is the responsibility of the public sector and the government and the state, right? They can deal with good governance in terms of their own operations, yeah, right? But not in terms of overall governance. Advocators. CSOs ensure that the voice of the most vulnerable in society are heard. So it's either voices or is, right? Verbal agreement again. And the correct forms of lobbying. If it's forms, it can be is. Okay? Social activity. Civil society operates on a framework of being socially accountable to their population and society. This allows for CSOs to be diligent in their own operations and holding the powers that are responsible for mishandling the resources to account. I have cut off the rest of that sentence and put it into account. When you get your copy of it, you will see. Watchdogs. CSO's main function in this area is to promote public accountability by being, and I mentioned that earlier on, being the social guard that keeps societal predators at bay and ensure the hand that rule, I changed that to the hand that rules, is liable to its citizens in a post-COVID-19 development agenda. I would be very careful if I am writing a paper, and so that you know that you don't want to say that you're social guard that keeps social predators at bay. Because these social predators are the same people you're trying to convince that you're relevant to it. So I would be a little more careful in my language, right? But that's a personal thing. I mean, if it's your paper and if that's what you wanted to put, fine. Networkers. Encourage collaboration with CSO and other organizations as they focus on their mission and vision, right? Nothing wrong there. In community influencers, I mean, that's another very good point, but just that the verbal agreement was let you down there, which leads to positive outcomes. Lobbyists in the governance process, again, really, really good points here. Educators. And then we come down to they contribute to putting knowledge and evidence into practice. CSOs also has, again, verbal agreement. And then you get into, as our world continues to change, you've gone to first person there. All the time you're referring to papers in third person. Do you all know that? Do you all appreciate the significance of that happened there? When you write in first person, you start talking about I and we and our, right? All through the rest of the paper, it was third person. Do I hear amen?
Understood, as the world continues.
Right, okay, good. All right. The CSO's duty to keep their populations up to date. So this was one instances where they did an apostrophe S instead of just the S. Right, the CSO's duty, possessive. Increasing legitimacy of civil society and rebranding, that's a good point as well. Potential for widespread engagement. CSOs, and this is one time where you put the apostrophe S, now it was supposed to be just the S. In the face of any pandemic, I don't think it's channel they wanted to put there. I think it should be challenged. Challenged to adapt to the use of various social media platforms. You all would know what you meant, but I think challenge would be a better word. Builders of new alliances. And the error there was that an expertise that will bring about viable solutions to problems arising. It should be post-COVID-19 and not post-COVID-19 in all aspects of our society. Right? Everybody with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Then
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
a very clever,
Yes, sir.
a very clever marks getting session here now was this kind of Inc. Relevance of civil society and the investment done by the Global Environment Fund. I thought it was very clever. Very, very clever. Right? To host a degree program promoting sustainable practices for civil societies, not for civil societies, but civil society organizations. That was an error there. I fixed that. This investment gave birth to a unique organization called that was very, very clever. All right, understanding the needs of civil society. And then And then you run back to, you drift back into first person now, although we, not we in our infant stage, you know, although the organization is in its infant stage, all right? Please don't mix persons in the same way that you're not supposed to mix tenses. And then, of course, a little bit of self-aggrandizement there. You know, you forget to put the lecture name in, you should get extra mark or two, which was clever as well. Especially if you, since you want to put the lecture wife and name in there too. So you probably got an extra mark for that, for being that clever. Recommendations. These 4 focal areas are highly recommended for CSOs, for CSO in this time. I didn't like the construction there, but I agree with some of the points. Stay up to date. I mean, I thought that was really first class. Analyzing strategies, again, first class. Policy positions. And this is where, you know, this is where proofreading and having different people look at it makes a difference. In society, as an advocate in the fight for poverty, boys, I training all you to fight for poverty. So
fight against poverty?
Yep. Operational and leadership advice. In this area of function, I don't like area of function. That is untidy, but it's not incorrect. A digital platform, right? No. This vision and mission must be the focal point where methods of operation are put in place. That you have to be a deep sea diver to read the sentence, because in the absence of punctuation, it means you have to start up. The vision and mission must be the focal point where methods of operation are put in place to ensure smooth transition and transformation from a situation of panic scale, which is created by the worldwide pandemic, to that of resilience in a post-COVID-19 society. Even I, with my deep diverse breath, couldn't read the whole sentence. And I don't like the use of the word scale. Yeah, no such thing as a situation of scale. It could be a situation of panic. It could be a situation of fear. I don't think a situation of scale is actually correct. Then in conclusion, civil society organizations should not be sidelined in a post-COVID society. These entities must be blah, 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 blah. That's a very good point here. But again, I had great difficulty reading the sentence without getting all blue in the face and suffering from the bends. These entities, let me read it, try to read the whole sentence. These entities represent the engine which propels the economy as they provide necessary resources required to advance any country during any kind of crisis situation when most governments and other political parties operate under tight restraints as they are placed in a position to function with their hands tied. That was such a good conclusion, that last sentence there, and you plenty tidying up. You know, I understand the point that's being made, but it's so untidy, you know, under tight restraints as they are placed in a position to function with their hands tied. I mean, that is, you know, a little lengthy and untidy. And then we go down the references and the mark. I will explain and address areas during class. You got 31 out of 40 for your effort. There ended. And as I say, I'm going to post it on the chat so that you could
Thank you, sir. Here ends my piece.
Yeah. As I said, this session was not for commentary or anything else. This was a tutorial part of the class where I told you what I thought, and all the coulda and woulda and shoulda has no place in a collective responsibility. And I kept hinting at it last week when I said, you know, when you're a member of a cabinet, right, in a government, and the government decides to take 10% of people's salary or something, you can't come out of that meeting, of that cabinet meeting, and go and talk to the first reporter and say, yeah, see what they're doing, boy? You know, wrong with the prime minister and them, you know. How they could take 10% of people's salary? Not they take 10% of people's salary. You took 10% of people's salary. Because whilst you are still a member of that cabinet, there's something called collective responsibility. So any errors that were pointed out there were made by all of you, and any points gained were made by all of you, because there's such a thing as collective responsibility. And I don't know of any way to teach this apart from throwing people into it headlong. As I said, I am really, really pleased that you guys survived the experience. It wasn't an experiment, it was an experience, right? Because I'm going to throw you in again, as long as I'm teaching this course, because you have to end up with a fairly cohesive unit if it is going to function as a CSO, and where it puts people first. And I don't know how many different ways and times to say this, but you are in the development business, and your primary concern should always be people. And if it's about people, it's about people's feelings as well. And it's about a sense of empathy that those to whom much is given, much is expected. And if you pass on a responsibility by whatever means to anybody or any group of people, then you have to be prepared, literally, to be part of the collective reaction to whatever they come up with, right? And hopefully, if I'm around, God willing, and we do this session on leadership and group dynamics, and so we have other opportunities to see how we can gel a truly cohesive unit out of the 25 or 24 separate entities that populate this CSO and this class. So that is what I want to say about that. I'm going to, as I said, share the document back with the WhatsApp group, because it is your document. It's a closed group, so you're going to see your document, and I'm going to post this in our course package history. All right? So that is what I wanted to say this evening. It is now 7 o'clock. We have gone pretty long today, but I think it was important for us to go through how I arrived at your 31 marks or your 77%. I mean, that's an A grade paper. Eh? So let's not fool ourselves. Eh? It was not a bad paper at all, right? I know a lot of thought went into it. I know that there must have been, some really interesting group discussions and group dynamics. So I wish I was a fly on the wall in some of those, in those 13 marriages to see, how it evolved. But I haven't seen an increase in domestic violence cases. So I suppose none of you killed one another. So that, it worked out. And as I say, brace yourself, because as long as I'm teaching you, situations like that are going to pop up again at some point. So enjoy your 31 marks, enjoy your 77%, which is an A grade for everybody. And remember, you could have this, you would have that, you should have this, you should have that, right? So.
Just before we go, just allow me to say, I must say, I do appreciate your unique style of feedback, because as an individual, that's how I strive in regards to, improving. And that uniqueness this evening, you have made my day. So I just want to say thank you, for that unique style, and I appreciate the feedback that you would have given.
As I said, and the feedback wasn't mine. The feedback came from.
I'm good at this. Good at that. I should have this. I should have that. But if you could have. I could have that. You should have. I should have that. And if you could have. I could have that. You would have.
We have to take that into consideration for a lot of things that we do.
True.
Our own interactions with our spouses, boyfriends, bosses. You're in a work environment, and there are people who will sit down there, and after you do what you do, everybody's bright with hindsight, you know, but what you can do is just play in your mind. You don't have to say it, just play in your mind. I could have this, I could have that, I should have this, I could have that. But if you should have, maybe you would have. And if you would have, you should have.
So before you move on, you said that you would have talked about our next assignment.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that your next assignment is not going to be a group project. You know, so fair enough. I thought I'd say that as the best news for the evening. Just to remind you that we have a class on Thursday, which will be the 9th, and then the last class for the semester will be on the 14th, which is the Tuesday before what would have been exam week for those other people who don't have a unique style like yours truly, right? So those other fools will be doing paper and pencil tests where they have to be scratching their head and trying to remember everything. And you will be just luxuriously, liming, because I'm going to give you the assignment on Tuesday and you have until the 17th to hand it in, which is you have a whole week to do it, right?
Thank you, sir. I am also part of that fool, that's doing exam on that week.
Scratching their head. I'm a part of that too.
I'm glad for you. But at some point, when you are marketed properly to your lecturers and to Mrs. Alexander, you'll be able to do, group exercises, and you'll be able to tell Mrs. Alexander, if the lecturer could have that, he would have that, he should have that. All right. Good evening, guys.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Pleasure.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Bye. Later.
Good class in a long time, sir. For the past 2 days, this class here make up for the past 2 quiet days. I enjoy classes.
All right.
And I see some faces too.
Okay. Bye.